Hello everyone, and welcome back to your haunted neighborhood, where the streets breathe, the shadows watch, and the past never stays dead. I'm your host, Jody Bohr. Each week, I share true stories of haunted places, cursed objects, and chilling encounters sent in by haunted neighbors like you. So come closer. You're already one of us. One of our haunted neighbors has a story that just couldn't stay buried, that has found its way to us and is dying to be told. So let's open the door, shall we? Step inside your haunted neighborhood. In a house buried deep in the woods, something was always watching. It never knocked. It never spoke, but it made itself known again and again. This is the story of a childhood marked by shadows, sightings no one believed, and a final revelation that proves some things don't go away, they wait. This story is called Weird Things I Saw When I Was Small. I only really tell the story to close friends because it sounds completely made up. This genuinely happened. I'll never forget these things. There were lots of times I remember seeing these things, but only a few instances really seared themselves into my brain enough to remember them as an adult. Anyway, here it goes. So when I was around 7, we moved to a house in the middle of nowhere, in the East Coast, the kind of place that was forest for miles. Your neighbors were far enough away that they probably wouldn't hear you scream in the night. All the roads were made of dirt until I was a teenager and some got paved. There were no street lights, no stores, and you had to drive 15 to 20 minutes in any direction to get to a town. As I got a little older, I would start going out to adventure on the roads at night, especially on nights where the moon was full, so I could see better. I would walk to the nearby cemeteries to walk around. There were 2 just down the street. Or walk down to the river if I wanted to climb down the big hill past those cemeteries and splash around on the shore. Walking at night to cemeteries was basically my life from 7 to 17. But one night in particular, I walked down to the cemetery I usually preferred over the other, as the path inside was newly paved. So it had a nice loop to walk and a good tree to climb in. But as I came close, a tall, thin figure in a black suit popped up playfully from behind one of the trash cans on the road by the opening. This figure had to be 6 feet at least, stomach coming to about level with one of those tall green trash bins. His outfit was all black, but I could tell he was wearing a very tailored suit. On his head was a tall top hat and a white porcelain mask adorned with a big smile. I stopped walking, staring at this figure for a good second. It didn't move. I didn't move. But then it lifted a long, slender arm and it waved at me before popping back behind the bin. At that moment, I didn't feel threatened, oddly enough. It almost felt like it wanted to play a game with me, but I was in no way interested. I was too freaked out to just turn around and leave, so I walked backwards. I kept my eyes on the trash bin until I couldn't see it anymore, before turning and running the rest of the way to my house. This was the first time I saw these things, but not the last. And he wasn't the only one. There was another time I had a friend over for a sleepover, around the time I was in middle school. We were sitting outside my house, just talking drama and whatever else teenage kids do. But all of a sudden, my friend saw something out in the trees. She had heard all my stories of these things before, so she stood up, ready to get out of there. But I hadn't seen it, so I was convinced it was just an animal or something prowling around at night. I stood up with her anyway, and we watched the tree line, waiting to see if we could spot it again. We waited, and eventually, a little head poked its way out from behind a tree. This one was much shorter and more egg-shaped, with his own white porcelain mask. His had a frown, though. He was peeking out from behind a tree at us, then went behind again. Then he moved to another tree and peeked at us again, all the while getting closer. We were scared to move at first, but eventually ran inside, woke my mom, and told her everything we'd seen. She checked it out, but found nothing. These kinds of things went on for a long time while I was growing up in that house, and eventually we moved out of it. We bought a house in the town 15 minutes away when I turned 17 years old. Once we moved, these sightings mostly stopped, and I didn't bring the stories up much anymore. My mom and my friends knew, but became a topic we didn't discuss much anymore since they weren't around. So the last scare they provided me happened when my sister and I went back out to visit our old home as teenagers. She'd just gotten her license, so we drove out on a rainy day to see how everything was. I was telling her all about a totally different story, about a girl I'd met in the cemetery once. We played and ran around, but a weird noise started coming from the woods. She wanted to see what it was, but I didn't want to wander off, so she went by herself. I waited, but she never came back. She wasn't a kid from town I recognized, and no one ever brought up her disappearance. I never saw the girl again. Then I started I don't know if I ever told you about these things, and started spinning off the tales I told above. Eventually, midway through, she stopped the car and told me to stop. She was visibly upset and said, "You saw those things too?" I was flabbergasted. I figured I was the only one they were bothering. "You saw them too?" I questioned right back. She then told me about how she'd seen not only them, but the girl I described in our house. She was sick at the time, so she thought she was having a crazy fever dream. But I, to the T, described the things she'd seen that night. Haven't seen them since, and can't make sense of what they were. But they were definitely a fun little spooky thing I remember from time to time now. And there it is, another unsettling little tale of your haunted neighborhood. The street lamp led us to the end. Let's talk about what made the quiet feel wrong. That story still lingers with me, not just for the details, but for how vividly they remembered it. The masked figures, and the one waving from behind a trash bin, the smaller one with the frown, they weren't just passing ghosts. They felt intentional, almost playful, but not human. And was the playfulness almost a ruse to make them believe they were being playful, but they weren't? What stays with me most is the silence, the stillness, the idea that something could appear out of nowhere, do so little, and yet leave such a deep scar in the memory of a child. And it wasn't just childhood imagination. That final moment when the storyteller's sister recognized the girl and the figures, the same masked faces, that's when the story crossed into something else. Something shared, something real. She thought it was her dreams, but they shared the same images. These aren't the kinds of things most people talk about, not out loud, but when they do, stories like this come crawling out of the dark corners of your mind, waiting for someone to remember them. Some hauntings fade, others carve their place so deep into your memory they become part of who you are. Maybe these masked figures were just figments, or maybe they were neighbors of a different kind, ones that never needed doors to visit. In your haunted neighborhood, the silence doesn't mean it's over. It just means they're watching from a little farther back. Thanks so much, you guys, for listening, and thanks for wandering these haunted streets with me. I hope you'll come back for the next story. Until next time, see you around the neighborhood.